Husband gets wife's friend pregnant. Months later, he discovers something surprising. Tiffany and Simon were the perfect couple in everyone's eyes. Young, in love, and full of plans for the future, they lived in a small town where everyone knew them. Tiffany, with her brown hair and a smile that could light up any room, worked as an elementary school teacher. She loved children and had always dreamed of having a big family. Her passion for teaching went beyond the classroom. She participated in community activities, organized school events, and was adored by all the students and parents. Simon, a talented architect, shared this dream. With his piercing green eyes and neatly trimmed beard, he was known for his creativity and dedication to his work. He spent hours in his office, designing projects and imagining the buildings that would one day become landmarks in the city. Simon also had a tender side, always thinking of ways to surprise Tiffany with romantic gestures. The two met during college, at a social event for their courses. Tiffany was studying education and Simon, architecture. A glance exchanged, followed by a conversation about dreams and aspirations, was enough to create an immediate connection. Since then, they had been inseparable. They graduated, secured stable jobs, and decided to live together. The house they bought was small but cozy, filled with plans for the future. They often sat in the backyard holding hands, planning the life they wanted to build. Talking about children was a frequent topic, and they both got emotional imagining a house full of children's laughter, toys scattered around, and walls decorated with drawings by their future kids. They decided it was time to try and make this dream come true, and started planning for a family. The first few months of trying were full of hope and anticipation. Tiffany bought books on motherhood, while Simon researched ways to prepare the house for the arrival of their first child. They started visiting doctors, undergoing tests, and following all possible guidelines. The expectation of a pregnancy became the main focus of their lives. However, time passed, and the pregnancy tests continued to come back negative. The couple didn't get discouraged right away, but as the months went by, anxiety began to build. Worried, Tiffany decided to seek specialized medical help. Simon, always by her side, accompanied her to all the appointments, holding her hand and offering words of encouragement. After a series of detailed examinations, the couple received devastating news. Tiffany had a fertility problem, and the chances of her getting pregnant were extremely low. The revelation hit like a bomb, deeply shaking the dreams they had built together. Tiffany felt as if the ground had opened up beneath her. Simon, though trying to stay calm, was also devastated. The news marked the beginning of a new phase in the couple's life. Tiffany immersed herself in fertility treatments, determined to try all available options. Simon, on the other hand, began to feel a growing emptiness. He struggled to support Tiffany, but the pressure of the treatments, coupled with the pain of seeing his wife suffer, started to create an emotional distance between them. While Tiffany spent hours in medical appointments and painful treatments, Simon felt increasingly lonely. He didn't know how to express his feelings without seeming insensitive, and this began to create an invisible wall between them. Tiffany, focused on her battle to conceive, didn't realize how emotionally distant Simon was becoming. And so, the couple that once seemed unbreakable began to show signs of fragility. As the months went by, the emotional distance between Tiffany and Simon grew into a deep and impassable chasm. Simon, who had always been the pillar of strength and support, began to feel more and more isolated and lonely. The long hours at work became an escape from the tensions and arguments at home. He spent less and less time with Tiffany, which only increased the sense of helplessness for both of them. "Simon, I feel like we're losing each other. You're hardly ever home, and when you are, you seem distant," said Tiffany. "I know, Tiffany. It's hard for me too. I don't know how to handle this," replied Simon. During this period of vulnerability, Amber, a close friend of Tiffany's, started to get closer to Simon. Amber was a charismatic and empathetic woman, always available to listen to Simon's problems. Initially, Simon felt guilty for finding comfort in someone else, but the loneliness and frustration eventually overcame his resistance. "Simon, I see how all this is affecting you. If you need someone to talk to, I'm here," Amber said in a conversation with Simon. "Thank you, Amber. Sometimes I feel like I'm the only one trying to hold everything together, and it's so exhausting," Simon replied with a sad expression. The conversations between Simon and Amber became more frequent and intimate. They would meet for coffee, have lunch together, and eventually spend hours talking about their feelings and frustrations. Simon found in Amber an understanding that seemed to have disappeared in his relationship with Tiffany. It was during one of these conversations that the line between friendship and something more was crossed. "Simon, I care so much about you. You deserve to be happy. You deserve someone who understands you," said Amber. "Amber, I don't know what to do. I feel like I've lost Tiffany, and I don't know how to get back what we had," explained Simon. One night, after a particularly heated argument with Tiffany about the fertility treatments, Simon sought out Amber. She welcomed him with open arms, offering a shoulder to cry on and a sympathetic ear. Simon's vulnerability and Amber's constant support culminated in a betrayal he never imagined committing. "Amber, I shouldn't be here, but I can't handle this alone anymore," claimed Simon. "Simon, you're not alone. I'm here for you," declared Amber. The moments of weakness and comfort in Amber's arms were a temporary relief for the pain and frustration Simon was feeling. However, these moments quickly turned into overwhelming guilt. Simon knew he had betrayed Tiffany's trust, but he felt trapped in a cycle of regret and fleeting relief. As Simon struggled with the guilt of his betrayal, Amber began to show signs of being more emotionally involved than he had anticipated. A few months after the affair began, Amber revealed that she was pregnant, throwing Simon into a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. "Simon, I need to tell you something. I'm pregnant," stated Amber. "What? How are we going to deal with this? I can't. Tiffany, Simon stammered, his face filled with terror. Amber's pregnancy was a shock to Simon. He was caught between the guilt of betraying Tiffany and the imminent responsibility of becoming a father. The revelation deeply shook his already fragile emotional stability as he tried to find a way to deal with the consequences of his actions. The revelation of Simon's betrayal and Amber's supposed pregnancy reached Tiffany in an abrupt and devastating manner. Tiffany was at home cleaning the living room when she found Simon's phone on the table. The device kept buzzing with messages from Amber. Curious and suspicious, Tiffany read the messages that mentioned the pregnancy and the future plans Amber and Simon were discussing. "No, it can't be true. How could he do this to me?" Tiffany questioned herself. Tiffany felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. The pain and betrayal hit her like a mortal blow. Feeling betrayed and devastated, she confronted Simon that same night. Simon tried to explain, but his words seemed insufficient to justify the betrayal and the lie. "Simon, how could you? I was fighting every day to save our dream, and you destroyed everything," Tiffany said with anger and sadness in her eyes. "Tiffany, I was lost. I didn't know what to do. I'm so sorry. I truly am," Simon justified. Tiffany couldn't believe what she was hearing. Tears streamed down her face as she tried to process the magnitude of the betrayal. Every word from Simon seemed to only increase the pain she felt. She realized that she could no longer trust him, that the person she trusted most in the world had turned his back on her at the most vulnerable moment of her life. Desperate and not knowing how to deal with the situation, Tiffany decided to leave Simon. She packed some clothes and essentials and went to her sister Caitlin's house, who lived in a nearby town. Caitlin had always been a safe haven for Tiffany, and now, more than ever, she needed that support. "Tiffany, you can stay here as long as you need. We'll get through this together," Caitlin reassured her. "Thank you, Caitlin. I don't know what to do anymore. My life has turned upside down," Tiffany replied. In the refuge of Caitlin's house, Tiffany began a slow and painful process of emotional healing. She spent the first days in silence, trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong. The memories of happy moments with Simon haunted her, but she knew she needed to move forward. Meanwhile, Simon, alone in their house, faced an immense void. He tried to distract himself with work and friends, but nothing could fill the emptiness left by Tiffany. The house, which once was a home full of love, now seemed like just a constant reminder of his mistakes. "How did I let this happen? All I wanted was a family with Tiffany. How could I be so stupid?" Simon questioned himself. Simon's loneliness and regret grew each day. He began to distance himself from friends and sink into his own thoughts, trying to find a way to redeem his mistakes. Simon knew he had made an irreparable mistake, but he wasn't ready to give up on Tiffany completely. The days at Caitlin's house were a mix of pain and reflection for Tiffany. She cried, laughed at old memories, and tried to understand where things had gone wrong. Caitlin constantly supported her, offering advice, listening to her outpourings, and reminding her that she was not alone. "Tiffany, you are strong. You will overcome this. Sometimes life hits us hard, but you will find a way to move forward," Caitlin affirmed in a conversation with Tiffany. "I want to believe that, Caitlin. I just need time to heal this wound," Tiffany justified. With Tiffany out of his life, Simon faced an emptiness that seemed to grow each day. He tried to focus on work, throwing himself into projects, but the pain of loss and betrayal followed him wherever he went. His office, once a refuge of productivity and success, was now a place of bitter introspection and regret. "How could I have been so blind? I let my fears and frustrations destroy the best thing I had in life," Simon thought. The nights were the worst. Simon often woke up in the middle of the night, tormented by nightmares and memories of happy moments with Tiffany. He looked at the side of the bed where Tiffany used to sleep and felt a deep pain in his chest. The silence of the house was deafening, a reminder of his loneliness. "I need to find a way to move on, but everything I do reminds me of her," Simon reflected, still lying in bed. At work, his colleagues noticed the drastic change in his personality. Simon, who was once known for his energy and passion, now seemed like a shadow of his former self. He frequently made mistakes, missed deadlines, and on several occasions was found staring blankly at his computer screen, immersed in regret. "Simon, are you okay? We're all worried about you," a colleague asked after Simon forgot to submit the documentation for a project. "I'm trying, but it's hard, really hard," Simon responded. Meanwhile, Amber faced her own dilemmas. She started to feel that something was wrong with her supposed pregnancy. As time passed, the absence of concrete symptoms and the pressure began to erode her sanity. But she feared the consequences this would have on her relationship with Simon and her friendship with Tiffany. "I did everything wrong. How could I let this get to this point?" Amber questioned herself. Simon, on the other hand, continued to wrestle with his conscience. He knew he had betrayed Tiffany in an unforgivable way, but the news of Amber's pregnancy further complicated his feelings. The prospect of becoming a father should have been a cause for joy, but in the circumstances he found himself, it seemed like just another burden on his already weary shoulders. How can I be a father if I can't even keep my own life on track? I've ruined everything, Simon reflected. One day, while reminiscing about old memories, Simon found a photo album from his wedding with Tiffany. He spent hours flipping through the pages, remembering the happy moments, the smiles, and the promises they had made to each other. Each photo was a stab of pain, but also a reminder of what he had lost. "Tiffany, I'm so sorry. If I could go back and fix everything, I would," Simon said to himself. Every day, Simon felt more and more lost. He knew he needed to face the reality of his situation, but fear and regret paralyzed him. The only thing he knew for sure was that he couldn't continue living this way. Something had to change. As Simon sank deeper into his loneliness, he began to reflect on his choices and actions. He realized that to move forward, he needed to find a way to forgive himself and learn from his mistakes. The journey would be long and difficult, but it was the only path to redemption. "I need to find a way to redeem myself, to be a better person, for Tiffany, for myself, and for the future I can still build," Simon thought. And so, amid the chaos and loneliness, Simon began to take the first steps on his journey of self-discovery and growth, even though he didn't know where this new road would lead. While Simon struggled with his regret, Amber was facing her own internal battles. The desperate attempt to keep Simon close to her had become an unbearable burden. Each passing day, the guilt and fear of the consequences grew inside her. "I made a horrible choice, and now I don't know how to get out of this. Simon needs to know the truth, but I'm afraid of losing him forever," Amber reflected in her thoughts. Amber spent agonizing weeks pondering how and when to reveal the truth. The constant pressure began to affect her mental health, making it increasingly difficult to maintain the facade. With each meeting with Simon, she felt the need to confess, but fear paralyzed her. "Simon, I need to tell you something important," Amber said during a meeting with Simon. Simon, still immersed in his own suffering, barely noticed Amber's growing unease. He was so consumed by guilt and the loss of Tiffany that he didn't see the signs that something was deeply wrong with Amber. When Amber finally found the courage to tell the truth, the revelation was devastating for both of them. "Simon, I lied. I'm not pregnant. I made it all up out of jealousy and fear of losing you," Amber confessed. The confession hit Simon like a punch in the gut. He remained silent for long minutes, trying to process the information. He felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and relief. The gravity of the situation finally revealed itself completely, and Amber's lie shattered the little stability he had left. "Amber, how could you do this? I was trying to deal with everything, and you just made things worse," Simon responded. "I know, Simon. I know I was wrong. I was selfish and insensitive, but I was desperate. I didn't want to lose you to Tiffany," Amber justified. Simon felt overwhelmed by a storm of emotions. Amber's betrayal, though different from his own betrayal against Tiffany, carried an equally destructive weight. He realized that the only way to move forward was to confront his mistakes head-on and seek the truth. "This changes everything, Amber. I need to tell Tiffany the truth. She deserves to know," Simon said. Determined to make things right, Simon sought out Tiffany. He knew that the road to reconciliation would be long and difficult, but he believed that the truth could at least offer a foundation to start anew. He found Tiffany at Caitlin's house, still fragile, but with a look of determination he hadn't seen before. "Simon, why are you here? Haven't you caused enough pain?" Tiffany questioned. "Tiffany, please listen to me. Amber lied. She was never pregnant. I know this doesn't change what I did, but you deserve to know the truth," Simon justified. Tiffany remained silent, processing the new information. Although the revelation didn't erase the pain of the betrayal, it brought an unexpected clarity. She knew that, regardless of Amber's lies, Simon's betrayal had been his choice, and the broken trust couldn't be easily repaired. "Simon, thank you for telling me. But this doesn't change the fact that you betrayed me. I need to move on," Tiffany responded. "I understand, Tiffany. I just wanted you to know the truth. I'm working on becoming a better person, but I respect your decision," Simon explained with a certain sadness in his eyes. As Simon left Caitlin's house, he felt a mix of sadness and resolve. The truth had been revealed, but the deep scars of betrayal were far from healing. He knew that the path to redemption would be long and full of challenges, but he was willing to face each obstacle. Amber, on the other hand, began to face the consequences of her actions. The confession brought some relief, but it also left her with a sense of loss and regret. She knew she would have to live with the consequences of her choices and find a way to redeem herself. "I need to find a way to fix this, even if I can never undo what I did," Amber said, determined. So, while Simon and Amber faced their respective journeys, Tiffany started to find a new light in her life. Although the pain of betrayal was still present, the truth brought a sense of closure and the opportunity to move forward. With the truth finally revealed and the decision to move on made, Tiffany began to focus on her recovery and the construction of a new life. Caitlin's house, always welcoming, became a true refuge where Tiffany could breathe and start healing her wounds. Caitlin was always by her side, offering unconditional support. In the following months, Tiffany immersed herself in her career, finding solace and purpose in her work. She started taking on new projects, rediscovering her passion for teaching. It was during one of these projects that she reconnected with Jonah, an old college friend. "Tiffany, it's been so long, how are you?" Jonah said, greeting her. "Jonah, what a nice surprise. I'm doing well, getting better each day," Tiffany replied. Jonah, a talented entrepreneur, was working on a project that required someone with experience in education, and collaborating with Tiffany seemed like the perfect choice. They started working together, and quickly, their old friendship and camaraderie resurfaced, bringing a new energy to Tiffany. "You always had a talent for teaching, Tiffany. I'm glad to see you're still so passionate about education," Jonah commented. "Thank you, Jonah. Working with you has been a breath of fresh air." As they worked together, Tiffany and Jonah began spending more time together outside of work as well. They went out for lunch, dinner, and even for weekend walks. Jonah was a constant and positive presence, always encouraging her and bringing a new brightness to her life. "Jonah, you've brought a light that I thought I had lost. Thank you for being here," Tiffany declared. "Tiffany, you deserve all the happiness. I'm just happy to be a part of your journey," Jonah responded. Meanwhile, Simon, now alone, was dedicating himself to his own journey of self-discovery and personal growth. The revelation of Amber's lie had been a catalyst for him, forcing him to confront his own mistakes. He started attending therapy, seeking to understand the roots of his actions and learn to forgive himself. Therapy was a painful and revealing process. Simon confronted his insecurities, fears, and the motivations that had led him to betray Tiffany. He began to realize that to truly move forward, he needed to rebuild his self-esteem and learn to value himself. "Simon, the first step is to forgive yourself. Acknowledge your mistakes, learn from them, and move forward with the intention of being a better person," the therapist explained in a session with Simon. "I'm trying, but it's hard not to blame myself for everything that happened," Simon justified. In parallel, Simon decided to channel his emotions into a creative project. Inspired by his therapy sessions, he began writing a book about his experiences and the process of self-discovery. Writing became a form of release, allowing him to express his deepest emotions and reflections. While Simon worked on his book, Tiffany and Jonah continued to strengthen their bond. Their relationship evolved naturally, based on mutual respect. Jonah was patient and kind, always respecting Tiffany's space and supporting her at every step of her journey. "Jonah, you've been an incredible friend. I don't think I've ever felt so at peace," Tiffany said. "Tiffany, you deserve all this and more. I just want to see you happy," Jonah responded with a smile. The time they spent together helped Tiffany to fully heal the emotional scars of the past. She began to see the world with new eyes, appreciating the small things in life and finding joy in every moment. Jonah's trust and affection were crucial in this process, allowing Tiffany to feel valued and loved. As Tiffany's relationship with Jonah blossomed, she occasionally reflected on her past with Simon, not with bitterness, but with a sense of understanding and acceptance. She knew that everything that had happened was necessary to reach the point of peace and happiness she now enjoyed. Tiffany and Jonah's relationship reached a new level when they started discussing plans for the future. They talked about building a life together, perhaps starting a family, and exploring more of the world around them. These conversations filled Tiffany with excitement and hope for what was to come. With Jonah, Tiffany felt she could face anything. Together, they built a beautiful story of love and respect. The past served as a lesson, but the present and the future were full of promises and possibilities. Tiffany had found her peace and happiness, and she was ready to fully embrace every moment of this new phase of her life. And so, the story of Tiffany and Jonah continued, with both ready to face the future hand in hand, confident in the love and strength they had found in each other. Life moved forward, bringing new opportunities and the promise of even brighter and happier days. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give it a like and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Until the next story.